Welcome back to Redefining Love. I am your host, Tara Portelli, and today's conversation is so important. Are you a first responder, military, veteran? Do you know a first responder, military, or veteran? A lot of these people are out there and they're silently struggling, and maybe they're masking it or deflecting with addictions, maybe sleep medications, maybe alcohol, maybe even drugs. These people literally committed their life to helping others. They are out in those communities. They are the heroes that go unnoticed and a lot of times unappreciated. And the toll that their jobs can take on their mental and physical health is catastrophic. And there is an urgent cry now more than ever to help this demographic, to help these people in these fields of work, to help them with their mental health, because the truth is there is a solution. There is a treatment out there that will help them. And the problem is that it's not conventional. It's something that is outside of the realm of what we believe to be a legitimate mental health treatment. It's not a pharmaceutical. It's not made in a lab by a human. It is literally a plant that grows in the ground that's helping first responders underground. The amount of first responders I've met that are doing these substances is mind-blowing. And the effects of it is life-saving. And the problem is they can't come out and share it with the world. And here today, I'm going to talk about these people, this treatment, and how those people who are struggling with mental health, with PTSD, depression, anxiety, who are first responders, veterans, or military, can actually help themselves. So something came up for me the other day, something that was showing me that this is very important work that I'm doing for humanity, for the people who give to others and maybe don't go recognized or go very unappreciated. And the toll on their physical and mental health can be catastrophic. I'm talking about our first responders. I'm talking about the people who are out there while you're sleeping, that they come when you call 911 on the worst day of your life, knowing that they're going to be there for you to support you when you don't know what to do. I'm talking about the veterans, the people that put their lives on the line to protect countries, to defend their people. I'm talking about these people who go into battle, who are constantly in a state of fight or flight, and try to integrate back into society with no ability to truly get out of the battlefield. These people suffer. They suffer so much with post-traumatic stress syndrome, with depression, with anxiety. The littlest thing can set them off, can trigger them. These are people that we don't even realize that they are amongst us. And they are silently suffering. And I want to talk about this topic today because I recently received this bulletin that came through. And it was titled Paramedics of British Columbia. And in it said an urgent call out for a mental health emergency. The highest rates of suicide in paramedics have been documented in 2025. This is very concerning, and I truly have so much deep compassion for these people because I was one of them. For 9 years, I worked as a paramedic. And when it comes to your mental health and wellness, it's truly up to you to do all of the things that are supposed to support you, that help you debrief calls. But the truth is that when everything feels overwhelming, when it feels like too much to handle, there really isn't the proper support there for you. And not to mention, there isn't the support of your colleagues. If anything, you're ostracized and you're judged, and you're made to feel that you're inadequate and weak. And this is why a lot of first responders go undiagnosed for a long time until their breaking point. And so, with the work that I do in psilocybin therapy, this all stemmed from my own personal experience. After suffering with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, being treated by a psychologist, by a psychotherapist, going through my own treatments in the conventional way, something still didn't feel aligned for me. And I knew that, but it was my normal. And sometimes you might think that you're treated or that you're cured from PTSD, from anxiety, from depression. But it's not until you have an experience with psilocybin that you realize that you were still suffering inside. And this was my exact experience. I never once looked for psychedelic. I never chose to use it voluntarily. Not to say that it was forced on me, but it was really, I really say to people that I feel like it really found me. It wasn't an accident that I was on the beach walking with my camera and wanted and felt the urge to take pictures of this kiteboarder. And so I did. And they were such great pictures that I was hopeful I would be able to give them to him. At the time, I was actually taking photos and writing for a magazine, for a travel piece. And this was about 4 years after I left my career as a paramedic. And also, a lot of other things in my life had happened at that time. And I was on this self-healing journey in Mexico on this beach. And I see this kiteboarder. And so I stop on the beach after taking the photos and I sit down. And this person literally swooped in as if they read my mind and introduced themselves and was like, yeah, here's my email. And we exchanged emails. And I said, I want to get these photos to you. So I went home. I emailed him the photos. And what I got back was a response saying, your email says nude mushroom. Mushrooms saved my life. And I think that we were meant to meet. And so I went and met him the following day. He told me all about his experience with suicide headaches. For 25 years, he had struggled. For any of you that don't know, they're cluster headaches, and they actually cause a lot of people to take their own lives because they can last anywhere from 3 days to 3 months. And they're so excruciatingly painful that people just cannot handle them. And so psilocybin helped him. It was the one thing that was able to alleviate his headaches. And he never had another headache again. And so this is such a powerful story, and it really piqued my curiosity. But I thought to myself, like, well, that's a great story, but I mean, psychedelics are not for me. Like, I don't need them. Like, I'm good. I'm managing fine. And he's like, listen, he gifts me with these mushrooms. He's like, just trust me. They're loving, healing medicine. Surrender to it. And so I went off and I sat with them for days before I was about to leave back to Canada and leave Mexico. And so I thought about it and I sat on it and I decided, you know what? I'm going to bike to this beach that somebody told me about. He said it was the best beach in all of Tulum, and it was a 9-kilometer bike ride. And when I arrived there, I was going to feel like so at home. And literally I did that. And I told myself, I'm going to go to this beach. And if I go there and it doesn't feel aligned, like, I'm not going to do this. I was so fearful. I had so much anxiety, so much fear around it. I did mushrooms when I was younger, but I never really felt anything other than ill. I never felt great. Never had a psychedelic experience. So I didn't know what to expect. So I I sat down on the beach. I walked into the beach. Well, I should say, I walked to the beach. What I walked into was what felt like it was exactly where I was supposed to be. There's just this knowing inside of me. It was as if I had designed this beach front myself. And I felt so comfortable and so at home and so at peace there that I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. So I told one person I knew wouldn't talk me out of it. We stayed in touch by text. And I started my dose, and I went into the most profound and life-changing experience of my entire life that still to this day I will never forget. And after that experience, I just felt different. I felt lighter. I felt more inspired. I felt more connected with myself. I felt love for myself, love for others. I felt clarity around what direction I was meant to go. And I feel like from that point forward, my entire life changed. And I also felt how unhealed I was, how therapy only masked my feelings. It only helped me to basically live with the symptoms in a different way. Never really actually healed what I was struggling with. And since that day, I've made my entire life around this path. I trained with a mushroom healer on how to use the mushrooms. I helped some of my friends to start, my family, and what I was seeing was mind-blowing. I was watching friends completely transform in 4.5 to 5 hours, and I was like, this isn't just me. This wasn't just my experience. This is what this can do for anyone. And my very first friend was actually a retired RCMP officer. He had done some stints in the Middle East. He was on the drug enforcement team. Or my first client was actually a retired RCMP officer who had done some stints in the Middle East. And he was so anxiety ridden that he literally couldn't leave his apartment. And I knew that I had to get the mushrooms and bring them back and work with him. So that's what I did. So after having my experience, I ended up going back just some months later and, found a way to source mushrooms where I was living, got a really good strain, a really good type. And I told him, like, I'm practicing, but I'm also being guided by this mushroom healer. So he trusted me. And he had 4.5 to 6 hour experience that literally changed everything for him. He left that experience, gave me a kiss on the cheek, said, "You are an angel. I know exactly what I need to do now." And he never once struggled with that anxiety again. If anything, it opened up an entirely new world for him where he started to explore other psychedelics in a healthy way. He went and had a conversation with a stepdaughter who actually a couple years later ended up passing away. He mended that relationship. Had he have not done that, it might have been a guilt he would have lived with for the rest of his life. And it really just shifted everything for him. And so after I was learning and after I felt confident enough to start to really explore this with people I didn't know, I started my Arcadia Healing Sanctum. And so in 2019, I founded my business. And in 2019, I also had my very first clients who came all the way from Europe, a 12-hour journey to work with me. And it was my very first experience with working with people I didn't know. And that was my very first retreat with them, and it was amazing. Not only did they have a profound shift in their own healing, but they also it was a couple, and they ended up mending their own relationship. And then I started working with more first responders, one of which was very public about his testimony. And we actually did a longer retreat, a 7-day retreat with 2 ceremonies. And the interesting thing about sometimes working with first responders, especially people like police or even military is that they're taught to control their environment. And so when you're taught to control your environment, sometimes you cannot surrender to the psychedelic experience. But all of the research is showing that there's neuroplasticity that's happening in the brain. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it means that our brains typically have the same roots of neural pathways firing on the same loops. So when you have anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress, oftentimes there'll be a trigger, and then you'll have the same types of thoughts over and over and over again. And it's really difficult to break out of those patterns of thought. When you take psilocybin, what it's actually doing is it's kind of quieting the central default mode network of the brain, which is kind of like the control center. It also is where your ego exists, and it kind of quiets it down, and it almost puts it on mute. So then what happens is all of the other regions of the brain that typically don't communicate can start to communicate with each other. And in that communication, they're also creating new neural pathways. So if you want to compare it to defragmenting your computer, where you're taking all of the files, compressing them, putting them away, clearing out the memory, all of the memory that isn't necessary, doesn't serve you, and then making a clear path forward, that's basically what psilocybin is doing in the brain. And so Danny is his name, is this police officer who actually retired from his career because of PTSD. He was forced to retire, and he still struggled. And when I met him, he's actually struggling so much that he had decided that if this wasn't going to work for him, that he was going to leave his family and he was going to take his own life. I just intuitively knew that I could really help this man. And so over the course of 7 days, I saw such a beautiful shift with Danny. And the most interesting thing about it was that he never once had a psychedelic experience. That is just a confirmation of how powerful that psilocybin is, how it's working in the brain. So for those of you that don't know, there's the default mode network, which is like the hub of the brain. It kind of controls everything. And that's also where our ego lives. And what psilocybin does is it kind of shuts down the default mode network. So then what happens is that other regions of the brain can communicate with each other that don't typically communicate. And when you do this, you actually create new neural pathways. So if you want to compare this to when you are defragmenting your computer, and basically what you're doing is you're taking all of the memories and you're putting them in the file, and you're clearing out the ones that don't serve you, and you are reorganizing how your computer works. Well, it's the same with the brain, and you create these new space to have new thoughts. Same as the computer, you have new space to have new files. So this is super important because it's also, again, going back to Danny, because he was a police officer and he was taught to control his environment, he wasn't able to surrender enough to get into a psychedelic experience. And on the spectrum of psychedelics, psilocybin is actually on the lower level of, I guess, strength of psychedelics. So ayahuasca and peyote would be the grandmother and the grandfather, and psilocybin would be considered the children. So it's very playful, it's very loving, it's very gentle medicine. And that's one of the reasons that I love it so much, is because people that are struggling with PTSD, the last thing they need is for somebody to be giving them a hard time, you know? So they don't need a strong experience like what ayahuasca or peyote might have them have. What psilocybin does is it actually gives you this beautiful, gentle, healing experience that is just as profound as an ayahuasca or peyote experience. What ended up happening was that he would be very triggered in the beginning before he started his doses. He would notice that, you know, if someone got into his space or if he was around people, like, he was triggered. And then what ended up happening over a couple doses is he started to have like a different relationship with people getting in his space. And he started to have like these deeper thoughts about, well, maybe they have different boundaries than we do because they're from a different culture. And like, he was starting to look past that. He also was someone that really beat himself up. And this has actually been really a common theme in a lot of the first responders that I've worked with. It's almost like they're these people that just have these really big hearts that want to they want to serve their communities, they want to serve humanity, they want to help people. But what ends up happening is that they beat themselves up when something doesn't go right, when they get ridiculed, when when something's not working the right way or going how they want it to go. It's like this form of control. And what psilocybin does is it helps you to really just ease up on yourself. Just know that you're doing the best job you can, that you are doing a job that most people can't do or won't do. And it's really important to honor yourself for that, for the sacrifice that you make for humanity. But getting back to Danny, I did a follow-up interview with him after his retreat. So not only did he go home, he behaved different, he felt different, he connected with himself in a different way, he got back to his roots, he started journaling and drawing and things that he used to love to do as a kid. He changed. His family even noticed how different he was. He handled adversity with a lot more ease. He was not triggered anymore the way he used to be. He managed his emotions better, and he had a different relationship with himself, which reflected in his relationship with his family. And he was so blown away by the experience. And this is somebody also that I should put on record that didn't believe in psilocybin therapy, psychedelics. He saw it as a drug. Like, it's been deemed, but it's actually a plant that has been put on earth for us to heal our emotional body. And that's the difference that I think that people don't see, because it has been classified as a Schedule 1 drug, but in fact, it's actually more of a medicine. And I think that anything made in a lab by humans is more of a drug than something that grows in the ground. You may or may not agree with that, but that is definitely my perspective. And Danny also now sees it that way. He is so grateful that he did this experience, because he literally says it saved his life. And I felt that from him. And so doing a 4-year follow-up, so 4 years later, seeing where Danny's at, seeing how he's been managing himself, he still says that he is forever changed. His life is significantly shifted. He hasn't reverted back to any of his old symptoms. And if anything, he has a better quality of life. And this particular interview, which I will link up in the show notes, and also is found on Arcadia Healing YouTube, as well as Tara Portelli YouTube. These interviews with him honestly sparked something inside of me. A call and an act of duty, to be honest. I know that now more than ever, there's more first responders struggling with their mental health than ever before. And there's a lot of factors to do with that. I mean, our economy, obviously, like things that are going on at home, the stresses. And then you add on overworked, underpaid, maybe undervalued, and all of the call volume on top of that. And not to mention what you're actually seeing in a call. Some people can see one dead body in their life, and that could ruin their life, and they will always forever be traumatized. But this is a daily event for first responders. Death is actually a part of what they can expect to see all the time. And that's a lot to put on to a human. I mean, these are not Supermans. They don't have some special magical cape. These are just really good people that mean well and want to do good for the community, for the world, for humanity. And it's really important to remember that. And so when they are amongst their peers, there's a lot of pressure to perform, to be strong, and especially with men, to not show emotion, to not be weak. And so that's really difficult to navigate. And what ends up happening is you end up getting to a breaking point when life at home and your work and all of the layers of experiences you've had on the job, with death, with fear, with, life-threatening situations, it takes a toll on our mental health. And so not only have I been able to have success with first responders, but also veterans, people that come back from war that have a really difficult time to integrate back into society. I mean, when you think about it, you're literally on 24/7, not knowing what's going to happen. Your fight or flight, your stress hormones are through the roof 24/7. You're always on guard. You don't get to relax. Your nervous system doesn't shut down. And then you come back into regular life, regular society, and it's not the same. You don't need to be on 24/7, but you just don't know how to shut that down. You don't know how to have normal conversation. And it's really, really challenging. And so those people that I've worked with who have come back from war, who are veterans, that also psilocybin has been super successful for them to help them to reintegrate back into their regular life. So obviously there's a high incidence of suicides in the paramedics, as that bulletin said, in Vancouver specifically, Vancouver, Canada. But that's not just limited to there. That's just one bulletin. But imagine how many services, how many people, how many individuals across fire, police, paramedics, military are struggling with their mental health, veterans. And so here's the problem. And psilocybin to this day has become a very effective treatment for PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And all of the studies that have been conducted across the world at most major universities, well-known, prestigious universities, are showing that this is an effective treatment. And this isn't something that you have to take every single day. This is literally one dose could change your life, 2 doses, 3 doses. You don't need to continue to take this substance. It's literally an experience that can last anywhere from 4.5 to 7 hours. And this is helping people. This is changing how the brain functions. This is helping to reduce symptoms of PTSD. This is allowing those triggers to no longer affect you so that you can actually have joy, have peace, feel good. You can feel confident in your job. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to go home and struggle to sleep at night. And so in response to the bulletin that came out, I actually sent an email. And here's the challenge. Because this has been deemed a Schedule I drug, the gray area that it now lives in is so gray that even though it's an effective treatment that's being studied across universities around the world, that there's layers upon layers of studies and papers being done, still, do you think that I got a response to my email? So my goal now is to educate first responders so that they can make a choice for themselves. I was hosting my ceremonies and retreats in Mexico for that reason, because of the legality around it. And then I found a workaround when I was working on Vancouver Island in Canada. And now, state by state, they're starting to change the regulations around psilocybin because lawmakers are seeing how effective that these treatments are. This is literally being taken on in psychiatry as a treatment in Germany. And of all countries for it to be taken on, Germany is such a massive step in the right direction. And it's exciting for this world of psychedelics and psychedelic research. And also, this is exciting, more importantly, for those people who are struggling, who feel like they have no hope. They don't know how to help themselves. Conventional treatment may or may not have worked for you. It's become a life sentence. It might just numb the feelings and symptoms of your experience with PTSD. And so I want to leave you with this exciting podcast to show you that there is a solution. And right now we're in a gray area, but it is available. And I am one of those people out there who is going to continue to do the fight to show the efficacy, to show the profound life-saving abilities that psilocybin has on mental health in first responders and veterans. As I sign off here, I just wanted to also share that the Imperial College of London, very well-known university, is doing really important work in this space, in the research side of things. And I have been affiliated with them and Arcadia Healing since 2021. And we have been part of their research. And that's really exciting because I know that this is working for people, that this is indigenous medicine. It was used thousands of years ago. And what ended up happening is modern medicine took over and it pushed out all of the ancient medicines were essentially plants. When you think about penicillin was made from a mold. A lot of our pharmaceuticals today are actually plants, but they are turned into a commodity that's made in a lab that they can put a price tag on. So this is just really exciting. I'm excited to be part of this movement. I'm excited to share this amazing therapy that has been studied worldwide with more first responders and veterans, to share that there is safe places you can successfully have these treatments that can only better your mental health, give you peace, allow you to access more joy. You don't have to suffer silently anymore. So if there's someone that you know would benefit from this episode, please share it. If you're enjoying Redefining Love and you want to subscribe, comment, rate, it only helps me to get my message out there to more people. Thank you for listening, and till next time.